showtime. Minutes until showtime. 2 minutes until showtime. Minute until showtime. Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
'Twas the night before Christmas when all through the land Fox News warned its viewers of a dastardly plan. The liberals were launching their war on the season to get rid of Christmas and commit acts of treason, removing decorations out of their sight and telling you that Santa and Jesus ain't white. Environmentalists will come right after your soul. They hate all things Christmas, especially the coal. They'll sneak in your house all dressed in their flannel and instead give the bad kids some new solar panels. They'll take up all decorations that please us. They'll even go after tiny baby Jesus. Now all these Fox lies cause such a frustration. Who would save us all from this misinformation? When live from the net there came lots of chatter. Could it be old Saint Nick, or perhaps someone fatter? Broadcasting from New Orleans down in Louisiana, it was none other than Liberal Dan, coming to save the holiday season busting through their lies with fact, logic, and reason. But I cannot do it myself, he exclaimed, so he called other groups, each one by name. On Christians, on Muslims, on Wiccans, on Jews, on Hindus, on Buddhists, and atheists too. Let's all spread the word and tell them indeed that there's no war on Christmas, just one on greed. So instead of joining this manufactured fight, listen to Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left, that's right.
Welcome back to Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from the Left, that's right. This is your host, Dan, Liberal Dan, coming from New Orleans, Louisiana, and my co-host, Sophia, to join the conversation. It's 914-803-4131. That's 914-803-4131. You could also join us in the chat room over at youtube.com/Liberal Dan Radio. I'm not using the Blog Talk Radio one anymore. Just come over to YouTube if you're listening on Blog Talk Radio. And if you're listening after the live broadcast, you can leave your comments, questions, concerns, etc. over on the show thread at liberaldan.com, facebook.com/liberaldan, or at liberaldanradio on Twitter. So a bunch of stuff to talk about tonight. As you just heard, if you didn't come in a few seconds late, there's my annual December show start, which starts off with the War Before Christmas. So I do that throughout the month of December for all of the shows, to have a little bit of fun for the holiday season. If you missed it, if you came in late and you heard it late, well, you can just rewatch the beginning of the show after when the show finally comes back online. So there you go. When's Wes calling in? I don't know when or if Wes is calling in today. We'll see. I guess the Buy Me a Coffee banner was blocking sleepy little Sophia, who just seems to be a little narcoleptic every once in a while. She's so cute. We got her 2 days ago. She's so precious. Hello, Kimchi. Of course, Mistress Erin West and the gorgeous Jolie, as Kimchi says, and I'm inclined to agree. So yes, I should have her over here so she's not blocked by the Buy Me a Cider thing. If you do want to support the show, you can always make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Share some videos with your friends. Let them know to watch and subscribe as well. And you can always buy me a cider. Go to liberaldan.com, click the Buy Me a Cider button. And you could always also go to buymeacoffee.com/liberaldanradio. Or you can Venmo me at liberaldan. Hopefully, I'm trying to get to 1,000 subs. And if I can get to do that, we'll be able to do subscriptions on the channel as well. If you happen to have Amazon Prime, and you haven't subbed over to Hal with your free Amazon Prime subscription, I also have nerdydan.com over on twitch.tv, my gaming channel, and you can sub for me for free once a month. So that would be awesome. I would appreciate it. In the chat, shouts out to Jeff, Bill, Kimchi, Ken, Stony, of course the Mod Squad, Jolie, Aaron, Alorasia. Am I missing anybody else? I don't think I've missed anybody yet. So, you are just totally chill, aren't you? You're just happy to be right there. Unlike Rose, that jumps out of my hands every second. She just sits there. All 2 pounds of kitty. She went to the vet today. All 2 pounds of kitty is right here. I might be a little bit distracted on some of the show because, kitty. So, she is sweet and precious. She is very sweet and precious. I think she slept on me for about 5 hours last night, which is shocking because my other cats never wanted to sleep on me. So maybe this is a good sign that she'll be nice and snuggly, a nice snuggly kitty cat. Let's see, Jeff Crouere, this is my last chance to be naughty. Weed legal tomorrow. They're saying that weed becomes legal tomorrow, so therefore anytime you smoke weed after tomorrow, it's legit at that point. I guess that's how I'm interpreting that one. So let's see what we got to talk about today. We got the big news, 51. The Democrats managed to get 51 seats in the Senate because Warnock defeated Walker. as he should have. And a lot of people are saying, well, how is it so close? How could it be so close? Well, remember, Georgia outside of Fulton and everything like that is very red. And this state, is voted for Kemp. I have a feeling that the reason they voted for Kemp but yet voted for Warnock is probably having a little bit to do with sexism, because they didn't want to vote for the black woman, but there's enough people who were willing to vote for the black man. Let's see. Hey, Lisa M., thank you for joining. Hey, Diane, thank you. Appreciate you new here. Just remember to like and subscribe. Appreciate you. I'm trying to build up. But yeah, I have a feeling that, part of it, of Georgia, the reason why Kemp won so heartily over Stacey Abrams, but Warnock was able to pull it off, is probably having to do with sexism. Again, because people are less inclined to vote for women because, reasons and patriarchy and all that other BS. But of course, the reason it was so close is because of the fact that, again, you also have just a bunch of deplorables in Georgia. Outside of the urban areas, you have Marjorie Taylor Greene country and other such areas of Georgia that would probably love to open back up plantations and other fun stuff like that. So, let's see. If all things were the same, but Herschel Walker was white, would he still have lost? That's a tough call, because I think the black voters came out en masse again. I think in the November election, I want to say like 17% of the electorate was black women, and like 95% of them voted for Warnock instead of Walker. It's very well possible that you might have seen enough people flip over. I think you had some voters like the lieutenant governor in Georgia who came out and basically said, hey, I can't vote for Warnock because I don't agree with him, but I also can't vote for Walker because he's an idiot. So there's that. So maybe if there would have been somebody that would have been more palatable, maybe if there would have been might not have had to have been a white person. It could have been, let's say you had a Tim Scott type Republican from South Carolina, but in Georgia instead, maybe he might have been able to pull off a victory versus Warnock. But, as Donald Trump says,
it is what it is.
Thank you, Donald. And because of that, you are so precious. Because of that, he got behind Walker, and then Walker won whatever. I think they have a primary there, so Walker wins the primary, and then just comes out ahead, and this is the problem. This is some of the problem with Trump. I think Trump is going to have is that you have a situation where Trump is going to get behind people, and those people are going to get lots of support inside the Republican primaries. And they're going to they'll win the primaries, but then in the general elections, they might lose because there's probably enough of the Republican Party who are tired of Donald Trump, maybe, or who won't get behind the extreme right-wing wackos that Donald Trump is supporting, and instead will either vote for the Democrat whilst holding their nose, or vote for third party if third party is available, or just not vote for anybody because they can't bring themselves to vote for either. Kimchi, oh my, that's Fanny Loco. It's hard to watch me while I'm fondling my little pussy cat, although they didn't say cat, but yes, I would be very distracting. It is quite a nice furry one, very soft. Y'all are dirty. Y'all are my kind of people. Anyway, so, but at the end of the day, Democrats won. Now, there was a pundit that made the comment the other day on MSNBC that I didn't agree with the comment. The comment said that if Warnock would have lost and Walker would have won, that would have required the Democrats to split committee chairmanships with the Republican Party in the Senate because it's a 50-50 split. I disagree. With 50-50 split and the vice president, the Democrats control the Senate. There should be no reason. This is why the Democrats lose sometimes, is because they want to be fair and nice. They want to do things as if they should be done. So in regular, maybe if it was 50-50, maybe in the circumstances they would say, okay, well the Democrats and Republicans should split the party chairmanships. But if the Republicans had won and it was a 50-50 Senate, do you believe for a second that the Republicans would be like, oh, we have to share the committee assignments? No. They would be like, no, we're getting all the committee heads because you don't control the Senate. So the Democrats try and act in a way that's fair and nice and reasonable, yet they wind up, being fools. It's, again, like Charlie Brown and the football. The Democrats think that, the Republicans might play fair one of these days, and they never do. So, let's see. Hey, Scotty. Hey, Eggoff, Twitler. Let's see. Trying to see what I missed. Proud of Georgia for breaking the cult of orange hyperbole. But yes, I mean, they did that in 2020. They did that in 2021 with Warnock. Did that do that in 2022 again? Sort of. I mean, I guess Kemp isn't a Trump guy because Trump is mad at Kemp because Kemp didn't have his back. Kemp didn't find the votes. Raffensperger didn't find the votes that he needed to be found. So Donald Trump is mad at them. But I think I also heard that Kemp over the weekend didn't really come out for Walker. Maybe Kemp was tired of having to apologize or to try and speak for somebody who was clearly ill-prepared for the office. He was clearly not somebody that, he was more worried about vampires and werewolves. Like, come on. I mean, and again, I kind of knew what he was saying with that. I think he was trying to get to a point that said, where, you have to, if you believe, you have to have faith, because if you don't have faith, it's not worth what you're doing, or what you're trying to do is not going to work. And that's all well and good if he was trying to say that, but he was very inarticulate in the way that he said it, and as such, he came out looking like a fool. Let's see, Real P. We are dealing with an attack on the North Carolina power grid. Our ISP is having problems here in Southwest Virginia. The grid attack allegedly over an LGBTQ plus event. I'm going to be talking about that one. I do want to talk about that one maybe once they find out a little more and can confirm that it was over an LGBTQ event and talk about it. I mean, personally, just briefly about that, I do think that it should be considered an act of terrorism, regardless of who did it. And, if these actions actually cause... Bill P., have you heard about anybody dying because of this? Like, have anybody losing the power to, like, critical life support systems, or losing power to refrigerate their needed medications, and as such have they died because of that? Has that happened to anybody yet? I haven't heard that, but I'm also not local, so sometimes we might not see it exactly with what happens. But yeah, I do want to talk about that at some point. But once I have more information, I think I will start getting into it more, simply because of the fact that, I do like to talk about things. I do like to be more informed when I talk about things. Now, I do want to apologize if you are listening on Blog Talk Radio right now. You are going to hear probably a little bit of dead air in between some commentary that I'm going to do a little bit later in the show, because I was on, if you've watched Hal recently went over and critiqued a video of Jeff Crouere. And, his video that he had for Real America's Voice or what have you. Jeff Crouere, I know Jeff Crouere personally. I've said that on the show already. I know him. We've met in person. I've been interviewed on his show before. I had when I did a radio show, like an actual legitimate radio show, it was at the same radio station that he was at, and he was the reason I had it. Dead air, GOP pod. Now, the people listening on YouTube are not going to hear dead air. The people listening on YouTube will get to hear everything. It's just I currently don't have it, so that if I play audio directly on my computer if I play audio that's coming on my computer that's not on Blog Talk Radio, the Blog Talk Radio people won't hear it. I haven't figured that out yet, and I'm trying to figure it out, but we'll see. So if you're listening on YouTube, you're fine. You won't hear dead air. But if you're listening on Blog Talk Radio, I'm giving you advance notice. Go over to YouTube so you'll be able to hear the whole thing. Because last week, one of one of his regular guests said that I don't want to debate him because of the fact that, I'm a liberal and liberals don't like to debate. And I'm like, I'll debate you. I'll debate you every day of the week. And one of the things that, I would love y'all to give me feedback on, because I think I did well in the debate. Of course, the conservative listeners to Jeff's show is like, oh, the conservative Crawgator won that debate. So we'll see. We'll see what y'all think. It'll be great if some of y'all would call into the show tomorrow and be like, I listened to the debate and Liberal Dan clearly won. That would be funny if y'all could just troll him all day long. Liberal Dan clearly won that debate. It's without a shadow of a doubt Liberal Dan won that debate. Especially when he did X, Y, or Z. Trump having Pizzagate and QAnon events in Mar-a-Lago the day that Germany busts a QAnon Nazi interaction attempt. Yeah, that was fun. I heard about that. Hey, Bicycle Mike, thank you for joining. Who else am I missing from the hellos? Crimson, thank you for joining. I don't know if I said hi to Benny Loco, even though you're there. Hey, Benny Loco. This cat is just so precious. And this is, again, if anybody who joined in late, this is Sophia. Sophia is my cute little precious new kitty cat that we got 2 days ago. Yes, we got you 2 days ago. And you're very tiny and precious and cuddly. Also, I did want to make a show supporting note. At the end of the year, I have there's an OG type shirt. They're not all going to say OG, but they're going to be black shirts with gold print on them with Liberal Dan Radio. And they're going to go to they're going to be going to people who have subscribed to the show on Patreon for at least 12 months. That will be going away December 31st. And you have to be one of the OG supporters to qualify for that. So if you're going to if after 12 months you want to get that shirt, you need to go to patreon.com/liberaldan or patreon.liberaldan.com. You have to go and get that subscription on Patreon and get your slot, because at the end of the year, I'm going to be getting rid of that. You might still be able to get other shirts, but the black ones with the gold lettering, those are going to be for only the OGs. And if you miss your chance, you're going to miss your chance. So there you go. See, Kimchi, kitties grow up to be cats, not quite cute, but definitely little snuggle bugs. We had one cat that was so precious and so lovey-dovey, and he was always snuggly all the time. So I'm hoping that this little one becomes so snuggly like that all the time. Let's see. Hey, Dan, our names kind of gave us away. Okay. Let's see. Bicycle Mike, I want a puppy. I have a new puppy, too. The puppy's not as new as the kitty. We got the puppy on October 16th is when we got the puppy. So we've had the puppy for almost 2 months now instead of 2 days. So, what you doing, little? Oh, you hear noises? You're gonna go inspect and see? You're so funny. She's so tiny, but she's very brave. She jumps off of things really much more quickly than her sisters have, because we've had her sisters for over a year now. So, anywho, so speaking of Georgia, I have an interesting words of redneck wisdom this week, and you'll see why it's an interesting words of redneck wisdom.
And now, words of redneck wisdom, brought to you by Liberal Dan Radio.
And let me tell you something else, too. This is what beat Walker. Gwinnett, DeKalb, Floyd are massive counties, especially DeKalb. And they are Democratic strongholds. Yeah. That's just the way it is.
And this concludes Words of Redneck Wisdom, brought to you by Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left, that's right.
Anyway, so yeah, he was right. He was absolutely right. It was actually a true word of redneck wisdom. because he actually said the correct thing. He didn't say it was stolen. He didn't say it was the reason that Warnock was able to beat Walker is because of those large areas having high population amounts. That's how elections work. So, shockingly enough, he was right. It was real, actual wisdom. This is also the guy that, was being very critical of abortion. I think he was critical again this morning of these abortion bans because he's very concerned about the fact that what if some girl was molested by her daddy, that person should be able to get an abortion. And I'm like, at least you're there, dude. At least you're there. So, Jeff, thank you. Thank you for my fine fiddle playing. Although the devil didn't go down to Georgia. Maybe a vampire and a werewolf might have gone down to Georgia, but not a devil this time. Let's also get this out of the way. We'll do the other bit as well, since the first one was short. I also made sure to do the hypocrite of the week this week, and it was going to be somebody else, but I was having problems wording with it, and I happened to got this thing in the mail today, saying this is why I'm making this hypocrite of the week.
This week's Hypocrite of the Week is the Recall LaToya Cantrell campaign, a conservative-run campaign. They sent out unsolicited mailers to 130,000-plus people in New Orleans, with petitions already filled out, in order to get signatures by mail. Remember when conservatives complained about unsolicited voting by mail? I guess it's okay because it goes against someone they don't like. To see who next week's Hypocrite of the Week will be, tune in to Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from the Left, that's right, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Central on youtube.com/LiberalDanRadio and blogtalkradio.com/LiberalDan.
Okay, so little backstory on that. LaToya Cantrell, not a very popular mayor amongst the conservatives in the city. I guess no Democratic mayor is going to be a popular mayor amongst the conservatives in the city. And this campaign is being funded by a lot of people who are outside of the parish, i.e. outside of New Orleans itself. The people who can't vote in it, but they can still do other things like help organize it and help pay for it. And no recall petition has ever been successful in Louisiana. Not once. It has never once been successful. But here's, I guess, what gave the people the willingness, I guess, to try and give it ye old college try was that first you had the issue of LaToya Cantrell, who was going places for the city, but was doing so in first class. She didn't believe that she was subject to the requirements that any seat upgrade, if you're paying for the upgrade and you were not forced to get that seat, you had to pay for the upgrade yourself. She did not believe she was subject to it. Eventually, the city attorney said, "You're subject to it. You need to reimburse the city." And then she was going to go reimburse the city. So there's that. And then there was, of course, they don't like the COVID restrictions that she had in place. Those made all the conservatives mad. They called her LaToya the Destroyer because of the fact that she was destroying local businesses and this, that, and the other. She had one thing I disagreed with. There was the carjacking. I'm not sure how much this made national news, but these kids carjacked, these teenagers carjacked this woman, ran her over, ended up killing her, and apparently one of the kids was in one of her kind of trying to be rehabilitation programs, and as such, she went, I guess, to hearing on his behalf, maybe, or to give the family support. It didn't look good. It didn't seem like it was something that you would want a mayor to be doing. And there was other problems as well. There was the other one where if this was a man, nobody would have complained about this. Nobody would have been batting an eyelash, probably. But apparently there's a hospitality apartment that the city owns that can be used, I guess, to host people or whatever. But she had been using it when it wasn't in use by the city for other people. And supposedly she was having illicit rendezvous with one of the people of the police department. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's the rumor. People saw her going into this place. I'm like, well, would you be doing this with a guy who was mayor? I don't think you would have. So lots of different things going on about that. But the conservatives took this as an opportunity, as her being very unpopular. Even in the last election, though, in in the last election, there was just nobody else running that was worth a damn. I mean, I was fine voting with her for the first time. She was very good on one of my friend's daughters was very pro LaToya Cantrell because of how outward and progressive she was in LGBTQA issues, and that's wonderful. And there was other issues that, you know, there was one Democrat. There was 3 Democrats running. One of them was horrible, like the top 3. One of them was absolutely horrible. One of them was basically a Republican in Democrats' clothing, and then one of them was LaToya. And I was like, well, the absolute horrible one needed to make sure not be there. So I voted for LaToya, and I voted for LaToya again in the runoff. And she ended up winning, and she won again in the runoff in the second election because, again, nobody who was worth a damn wanted to challenge her. So she won by default because everyone else was just kind of one of those also-ran type positions. And I usually don't like this term for Minicast, but if you're the head of a municipality like a governor or a mayor, yeah, you're also-rans. There are plenty of people who just, there's no business for them running. They should be doing something else because it's just basically wasting their time doing it. So here we go, and then starting this recall campaign, and apparently they have so much, they're flush with cash. They have enough cash right now that they're running advertisements on television trying to convince people to recall the mayor and to send in their petition so that she could be recalled. And if and they also have enough money to mail out 130,000 mailers. 130,000 mailers to voters in the city of New Orleans, unsolicited. I got one today, I don't know if it was addressed to me or if it was addressed to my wife, but we got one today in the mail. And the amount of hoopla and complaining and whatever is done by Republicans on, unsolicited votes. You shouldn't get it unsolicited. If this is an official action of the state, it should be solicited. You know, you should have to request it before you get. You shouldn't be just sent it unsolicited. Well, I guess that doesn't matter if you like the thing that's going on. If you want to have the recall petition be successful, then clearly unsolicited mail is fine in that case, right? Hypocrites. You also have the situation where, well, everybody who signs these things, you know, it has to be the person. Like, my wife can't sign for me. I have to sign for me. So, well, what happens? Well, do I have to show an ID? I do not. Well, why do I not have to show an ID? And if they're so big on voter ID, why aren't they requiring IDs to be shown so people can prove who they are with a voter ID in order to return this petition? No, with this, they have no problem following the rules, which allows, I guess, for a signature and a witness. Come on. Like, at least be a little bit consistent, but as Nibisios, the host of the most with the smooth sounds of the Percy podcast, says, hypocrisy is a conservative prerequisite. So that is why you will see Republicans blathering on all day long about unsolicited mail-in votes and mail-in voting in general and showing IDs and this, that, the other. But when it comes to showing IDs for these petitions, nope, they're not doing that at all. They're not making sure that these people are legitimate people. They're just selling out unsolicited mailers and hoping to get them back and hoping, I guess, that they're valid. Ridiculous. So, anyway, that's why they are the hypocrites of the week. Let's see. Chatting in the chat. Let's see. Jeff Crouere, werewolf, vampire. I'll take a Bigfoot every day. Well, you know what they say about monsters with big feet? Let's see. Boom. Stony Baker. Hookers suck for $1 per tooth. Oh my God. Hilarious. Hey, Tim. Hey, thank you for joining us in the chat. Spider mites are something that infest your cannabis. Oh no, that's not good. They have faces similar to Ann Coulter. Nice. Neem oil is organic, but you need to alternate between the pythirin of chrysanthemum flower and also is organic like bug killer, where neem oil interferes with the spider mites' reproductive style. Blah, blah, blah. Lots of discussion about something that I don't really know. Hey, Teresa's in the room. Hi, thank you for joining us, Teresa Tack. We've been eating a pot roast stew for 2 days. Warms the soul. I want some kimchi. You need to. I don't think that's the first time you've talked about food, kimchi. You need to feed me one day. Oftentimes when I'm talking to Nimbus Yosh, Smooth Sounds at the Percy Podcast, he's often like, "You need to share some of that food, bro," because I'm always sharing food porn. So I think I want to get kimchi to give me some of that food too, because I would like some of that food. And a bunch of hellos. Kinky Streets, welcome. Kinky Streets, if I haven't said hi to you already, hello again, if I have. So anyway, the person that was going to be Hypocrite of the Week was Ted Cruz. But I was just having problems wording it correctly. Because while I've been very vocal about this on Twitter today, and I've been making some conservative people very, very mad at me about what I've been saying about Ted Cruz and what's going on with his family, I didn't quite know how to put it into a snarky bit. I think, to me, making it a snarky bit might have been taking it one step too far. Hey, Crimson, I think I said hello to you, but hello again. If you don't know, the police were called, 911 was called to the Cruz household, where apparently there were some self-inflicted wounds on Cruz's 14-year-old daughter. And it's well known and out there that Ted Cruz's daughter is an out young bisexual woman. Young woman. Some people had a problem that I didn't call her a child because she's 14. I called her a young woman. Well, I have a problem. Like, it seems condescending to refer to like a 14-year-old person as a girl or a boy. Unless it's like my son, I'd be like, that's my boy. But I think it's appropriate to refer to teenagers as young men, young women, young individuals, etc. If they're non-binary. 14 is the worst age ever. And people are like, well, she's confused. And I'm like, well, of course, every teenager is confused. Puberty hormones are raging out the yazoo. They don't know what's going on with their body. Everything's changing. And you're dealing with, feelings, whatever, and you're dealing with emotions and attractions. And, well, guess what? Ted Cruz's daughter is attracted to more than just boys, more than just young men, I guess. And so my thing with this, let's see, Jeff Crouere, I feel bad for the girl. I don't feel bad for him as a person, as a dad, maybe. I don't feel bad for him as a dad. Well, first of all, because she's still alive, which is, thank goodness she's still alive. Thank goodness whatever happened to intervene that prevented her from finishing it. But what I've said on Twitter, I've said this many times on Twitter, on Facebook, I cannot imagine what it must be like to be a young woman who happens to be bisexual, who happens to also be the daughter of Ted Cruz, and to have my father out there advocating for policies and fighting against policies that are meant to protect, fighting against policies meant to protect me, fighting for policies that will hurt me. Ted Cruz was very open about the fact that he did not support the Obergefell ruling. Ted Cruz was very open about the fact that, he did not vote for the act that would protect marriage. Again, not that I think that law would have any weight with the Supreme Court. I think this Christo-fascist activist court would be very happy to toss that law out, just as they did Roe v. Wade, since they believe that powers belong to the states. But again, let's not rehash that too much. But I don't believe, I can't even fathom just the idea of having a parent that would actively be working to enact policy via the federal government that would hurt me. That can't be good for someone's mental health. That can't be good for, and I'm sure, I don't know if she had previously gotten any mental health. Hopefully she will get some mental health care to deal with the problems that she's dealing with. But as a father, if I ever got elected to office, and I would never even, if someone wanted me to support a policy that would harm my children? I would say no. And if they said, well, if you don't pass this, you're not going to get reelected, I'd be like, well, fine, I won't get reelected. There are things that are more important in life than getting reelected. There are things that are more important in life than personal success when it comes to, like, you know, achieving your dreams politically. No. Ted Cruz is a scumbag, piece of crap, who does not deserve a daughter like that. And I saw a lot of people saying we're her parents now. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And I'm not going to hold back on being critical of him, because not only do his actions and his words harm his daughter, his actions and his words harm everybody else, or would work to harm other people if he was able to get his way. So, no, I'm not going to hold back. I'm not going to use kid gloves. People, of course, like, this isn't the time. This isn't the time. It's never the time. It's too soon to talk about this. No, when is it ever not too soon to these people? Because once it starts becoming the time to talk about it, the next bad thing happens. And then it's too soon again. Because they use the whole too soon argument. They use tragedies as an excuse to not talk about things. A lot of times they'll be critical of Democrats, liberals for using a tragedy for political advantage and using a tragedy to try and pass things, like using school shootings to try and pass gun control legislation, trying to pass, you know, eliminate the loopholes in background checks. You know, for example, they'll do that, but they don't understand, and they don't realize that they're doing the same thing when they use the people suffering. It's not the time. We can't talk about this now. Well, no. As one thing I sometimes like to quote from my Jewish upbringing. Usually I quote the first two parts. Like, if I am not for me, who will be for me? Which means you have to always look out for yourself. And then, if I am only for myself, who am I? Which means, you know, I'm not a good person if I'm only for myself. And then the third one is, if not now, when? Well, usually I don't talk about the if not now, when part, because it's the other two that kind of take precedence. But in this case, if not now, when? When are we going to talk about it? If we're not going to set aside the time to talk about it, like, okay, let's take a break. Make sure you're not on camera. And so if you're not going to take the time to talk about it now, put the time out there. Say, okay, we're going to talk about this at, you know, this date. January 15th, 2023 is the day where we're going to start talking about it. Cool. We'll talk about it then. But they're never going to have a time that they want to talk about it. They're always going to pass the buck. They're going to say, oh, well, there's something other reason why we can't talk about it now, because they don't ever want to talk about it. It's ridiculous. It's crazy. Let's see. Teresa, I feel sorry for my one niece. Her name once was Rebecca. She just told her parents she wants to be called Jude. Recognizes herself as transgender now. So wait. So he is now transgender, Teresa? Is Jude identifying as a male at this point? But yeah, it's always terrible when parents do not respect their children's wishes. I mean, it's terrible when anybody doesn't respect the children's wishes when it comes to trans issues or any other issues like that. I mean, the data shows that for every person that accepts a trans person for who they are, that person is 50% less likely to commit suicide. So it takes zero effort to be kind. Just show some respect for the people when they tell you who they are, and treat them with respect and respect them for who they are, and that's the end of it. But no, these people don't want to do that. They'll say, oh, now the biggest line that I'm seeing running around now about people who are trans is that it's a fad now. It's a fad. It's not a fad. Or more people are being trans now than before, which was said yesterday on Jeff's show. Well, yeah, there's a percentage of the population that are trans, and years ago we had, let's say we had 1 billion less people on the earth whenever we had 7 billion people instead of 8 billion people. Now, that number has grown from 7 billion to 8 billion. So if a certain percentage of people are trans, guess what? You're going to have more people. It's math, but they don't like math. They don't know how to do math. They don't know how to, they don't understand math. They don't understand science. It's ridiculous. But one of the other reasons, well, we never heard about this when I was a kid. You didn't hear about this when you were a kid because people were so shamed into being who they were that they had to force themselves to be who they weren't. So that's why you had, you referred to people as, oh, these two guys, they're roommates, or these women were friends for life. No, they were lesbian. The other guys were gay men. They were bachelors. That's what they said. They were called two men who were living together. Oh, they were just bachelors. No, they weren't. They were gay men. And they just didn't want it to be known that they were gay men because they would be attacked or imprisoned or harmed in some way because society sucked. Now society sucks much less. And we have more people who are more accepting of trans folk, more accepting of people who are, in homosexual relationships, people who are LGBTQA+. People are more woke about it, and woke is not a pejorative. People are just more understanding about these sort of things. At least some people are, and that's why we're seeing more people come out and say, yes, this is who I really am. This is my legitimate self. This is who I am as a person, and I am now in a point in a society where I can share who I am and with other people and not have to hide it. And that's a good thing. But of course, that makes the anti-science folks, oh, it's just a fad. No, it's not a fad. They've always been there. See, Bicycle Mike, I'm sick of the intolerance. I am intolerant of intolerant. That's the paradox of tolerance, where you have to be intolerant of intolerant in order to be truly tolerant. You want to hand me off the kitty? Look who we have back again. We have the kitty again. Oh, you're crawling up my shoulder. Ooh, 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 ooh. You're being sneaky. You need to go to bed, Henry. Let's see. 988 is the suicide hotline. Yes. Let's see. Let's keep scrolling down. Why I feel for my, let's see, for parents not for LGBTQ, very conservative. I guess, Teresa, the one thing I would say is that if the person that you are an aunt of, I guess that's the best way to put it, if she is trans, or if they are trans, then try not to refer to your relative as a niece if they are now no longer considering themselves to be a woman, and maybe ask what they would like to be preferred or referred to, because that way it will be more affirming. And I know, I don't think that you're being in any way, I'm not trying to criticize you. I think it's admirable that you're standing up for your relative who clearly needs an advocate because the parents are not being advocates. But just make sure that when you refer to your relative, that you refer to your relative in the way that your relative wishes to be referred to. So yes, Kimchi, there was no hormone therapy 100 years ago. Of course not. Why do people who claim to be small government want to have the National Guard crotch inspections at public restrooms? Exactly. They want a government that's so small that it can fit right upside your hoo-ha. Yeah, Megan, it's cool to be trans or gay, just a fad. I'm a woman on purpose because I love being oppressed and having laws against me because of my uterus. Exactly. Well, there's also the whole thing where there's the common thread online when groups are showing how horrible dudes are being. They'll basically say, this just proves that heterosexuality or attraction to men in general is not a choice, because if it was, nobody would choose it. Yes, hi Megan, thank you. See, my daughter is 22 years old. She is not prejudiced against anyone, which is great. I'm proud of her. That's also very good. I'm trying to teach my kids to be as friendly and as polite and as caring to other people as they possibly could be. Yeah, my oldest son turns 14 in 8 days. And then my youngest will be 10 next year. Getting old. There was a conversation that we were having with the kids, whatever, where I said something, if you don't stop misbehaving, I'm going to take whatever toy you're playing with to your grandmother's house. And he was like, my youngest was like, well, I'll just follow you there. I'm like, how are you going to follow me? I was like, I'll take my bike. And I'm like, I'm in a car. I can outride you in a bike. Well, I know how to get to Gigi's house. Well, you can't get there by yourself. I'll have Thomas drive me. He turned 16 in 3 years or 4 years. And I was like, I feel old. Yeah, Kimchi, woke is enlightened, but maggots can't spell that. That should be on a t-shirt. Woke means enlightened, but maggot folks can't spell it. That's awesome. What's great is that I think it was Ron DeSantis' attorney who had to define in court what they believed woke meant. And they gave the accurate information. There was like, woke means that you're aware of the how certain minority groups are mistreated in this country and are actively working to fix it. And I'm like, well, yes, you have it. You got it. You hit it right on the nose. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. And you're just admitting to you've just admitted to the fact that you want to stop people from doing that. It's absurd. Love the fact that they hate Antifa. Anti-fascist. We're anti-fascist. Yes, that's a horrible thing to fascists. Let's see. Lisa, my kids are 16 and 20. I am old. Yeah, I guess. I mean, we did have them like in our 30s. So, I mean, we're going to be older than some parents might have been. But yeah, I mean, 31 and 29. I can't even imagine that. Let's see. If they call woke by any other name, empathy, it makes them look bad. Well, they talk, like, what was it? Somebody else on Twitter was like, people are too sensitive today. I'm like, or college students are too sensitive today. Are they? Oh, I'm sorry, Bill P. I was not even looking. See, here's the thing. I have a brand new, well, okay, I say it's brand new. I've had this monitor since we evacuated for Hurricane Ida last year. And it was ever since we came back from Georgia, it's been sitting in a box. Well, I finally got around to putting this bigger monitor on my desk. So I now have this big monitor that I can look at with lots of real estate. And I forgot to look down and see that Bill was here. Hey, Bill, what's up?
Hey, how's it going, Dan?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Well, I'm hanging in there. Had a late evening. I just polished up a plate of spaghetti. Had to get my Italian on.
Nice. My family had some Italian on Monday, but I didn't feel like having it because we ran out of Parmesan cheese, and I can't do Italian without Parmesan cheese.
Oh, I just piled the Parmesan on. I love it.
If I ever go to Olive Garden, which is rare, but if I ever go to Olive Garden, I give the poor servers there carpal tunnel syndrome because of how much they have to grind that fresh parm.
On that bread?
Oh, yeah.
Got to eat the bread. One reason I called, it was about Ted's daughter. The situation that not many people have talked about is Ted's father is a Pentecostal minister. I don't know if you're aware of that or not. Right. He's a Dominion theologist, and they just despise the LGBTQ plus community. And I mean, that girl, I can't imagine what she's going through. It must be hell.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I don't think I was thinking about that during that, but I do remember that fact about her grandfather, about his father. You know, I mean, Ted Cruz is so problematic for many different reasons. I mean, if I was married to Ted Cruz and, you know, the presidential candidate of my party insulted me to my spouse, and my spouse didn't stand up for me, instead turned up and started, you know, simping for him, as the youth might say, I would get a divorce. I mean, I said it on Twitter. Like, I'm so happy that I know that I have a wife that if anybody spoke poorly about me, publicly or privately or whatever, that my wife would have my back. Ted Cruz didn't have his wife's back. Ted Cruz doesn't have his children's back, at least this child's back, because he's supporting policies that would actively harm her. It's terrible. It's horrible.
Oh yeah, Trump even said that Ted's dad was involved in the assassination of Kennedy. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Nutty stuff.
Oh, Ted Cruz is one of the ones that got one of the nicknames. He was Lion Ted. That was his nickname during the campaign, Lion Ted Cruz.
I tell you, I'm going to date my age now for you, but around 1980, there's one of the world's most famous televangelists, Oral Roberts. His son committed suicide. He was a gay person, and instead of coming out, he committed suicide.
Yeah.
His name was Ronald Roberts.
And that's what happens when you're in a marginalized group like that, and the people who don't understand science want to say that it's a choice, but it's not. You can't choose who you're attracted to. And when you're not supported by your parents, when your parents make you out to seem like you're a horrible person just because of who you're attracted to, who you fall in love with, these things are going to happen. And I can't imagine.
Oh yeah.
Can't imagine being a parent and not automatically just making sure, like, as long as my kid's not hurting anybody with what they're doing, then I'm going to support them 100%. And
That's right.
Benny
I've
Loco
got 4 sons.
in chat, hold on. Benny Loco asked, how old is Cruz's daughter? Someone said, yeah, people got 14 in chat. Yes, she's 14.
Yeah, she's 14. But Ronald, he lived a hidden life. He was married, and they had adopted several children. In addition to that, Jim Baker, the famous PTL guy,
right?
His oldest son, Jay, came out several years ago before his mother died. And that boy's still going through hell to this day. He's done.
I was about to say I can't imagine, but I really can't. I can't imagine what that's like. It's terrible.
Oh, me either. I mean, that'd be horrid. Knowing that everything that your parents or your grandparents stand for is what you stand against is what you are. I mean, that would be horrid.
Right. I'm so happy that, like, my grandparents were, like, very liberal. Like, my grandparents were they were pro Joe Biden. They had no problem with gay marriage. And, like, my grandfather, he didn't fight in World War II, but he was in the army, like, the year after. So, like, he went to, I guess, when they were cleaning up Germany and stuff like that. So he was, in the army in the 40s. So he was old before he passed away, and he was supportive of gay marriage. He was supportive of many things that you would typically say, oh, well, those people wouldn't be supportive. No, they were very, I guess, progressive for their age, at least. I mean, I can't speak on every single issue. My cousins one of my cousins happens to be trans. I'm not quite sure. I think they were supportive of her, but I can't speak 100% on that. But anyway, it's tough, and again, you have to. It takes zero effort to be kind. At least I like to think that for me, it takes zero effort to be kind. When I want to be like an asshole to somebody, and I could be an asshole to somebody, especially when they're that first, but it takes effort. It takes effort for me to do that. And I don't know, maybe these people, maybe they're not. Maybe they're sociopaths. Maybe to them, their default is horrible, and it takes effort for them to be nice, which if that's the case, that's a damn shame.
Oh yeah, and I mean the thing is, I believe because this comes out of religion, that's where it all originates from. As well, being Jewish, and me with my Jewish and Protestant Christian background, I got it from both sides of the family.
Right.
It's when you have intolerant people in your family, you have to try to be tolerant yourself just to be around them. I mean, it's just sickening.
Right.
But I can imagine what this poor child has gone through, and I really hope the state intervenes and gets the girl help.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, she needs help. Absolutely. I don't know. Some people in the chat are saying that they should take her away. I mean, if it's shown that they're that they were negligent in their parentage, then maybe. But I mean, I can't imagine. I can't imagine that the state of Texas would take away a daughter of a U.S. senator. So I don't think that's a realistic expectation. But I just hope that she can get help, and I hope that she can get whatever like mental health issues that she needs. But we all know in this country that mental health is woefully inadequate. It's getting therapy. Trying to get therapy. It's like an act of Congress. It takes an act of Congress just to get therapy. Sometimes it's like you try and get therapy, and by the time you find a therapist, you need therapy over because of all the things you went through trying to get therapy. That's just another issue that you got to throw on. So, I
mean, you can attribute some of this going all the way back to Ronald Reagan when they got rid of the mental health programs that were set up nationwide. He just killed the whole thing. And that's why we have all these veterans. The vast majority of the homeless population is veterans because they were just turned out from the VA hospitals.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because they don't believe that. They view that, many conservatives view the idea of seeking help for your mental problems as a sign of weakness. They think it's weakness to do it. It's weakness to admit that you're wrong. It's weakness to admit that you need help. To them, it's weakness when you have to put up this big manly front, and if you don't, then you're somehow weak or somehow a beta male, as some would like to say it. You're not, even though that idea is toxic in and of itself. But yeah, these people just like, again, that's one of the reasons I say when President Obama during his campaign said there's not two Americas, there's not blue America, red America, there's the United States of America. I was like, I'm sorry, dude, you're wrong. There are at least two Americas, because there are clearly two very differentiated groups of people in this country, and one of them wants to treat people with kindness and respect and caring and for who they are, and the other group wants to treat people with hatred and evil might not be the right word, but maybe it is. But just they have hatred in their hearts, and one of the ideas of that I've learned of Christianity was that sometimes people get so bad that they're irredeemable because their hearts are so hardened that they just can't change. And to me, many of these people have just such hardened hearts. There's no way back for them. They're just going to be who they are, and I don't know what else you do about them except for the fact you just try and get out and outvote them, because at that point,
right?
Because there's no other way. Like I have no problem talking with people and having a conversation with people, having a debate with people. And I've had conversations where people have changed my mind on things. I've had conversations where I've changed other people's minds on things. It's one of the reasons that I like having the talk show. One of the reasons I enjoy not just having folks who agree with me on, but also discussing things with folks who disagree with me. But there are some people, and this is a great segue for the last thing that I want to do. There are some people who are just have their hearts so hardened and full of hatred that not only they project their hatred onto other people, and they also just do not treat people in the way that they should be treated, and they're so hardened that they are not willing to admit that they could possibly be wrong and that there's possibly something that they could learn. So do you have anything else, Bill, that you want to chime in before I put you on mute for a second?
No, that's all. That's okay. I'm gonna run. It was nice talking with you. I enjoyed it.
I appreciate you as well. Thank you so much, and you have a great day.
I'll be hanging out there in the chat, and I'll get you some money here as soon as I can.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Hanging out. Appreciate it.
All right.
Okay. Have a good.
You as well. And that was Bill, one of my people who love talking to fellow sparklers, etc. Trucker John. Hey, Trucker John's in the chat. Thank you for joining us. I also saw TV2 Live. Thank you. Make sure to go follow both of them. Go subscribe to Benny Loco as well. Benny Loco, TV2 Live, Trucker John all have channels. Anybody else who also has channels, just let me know and I'll be happy to share it with y'all. I'm sure the Mod Squad will also help give links as needed. But here again, if you happen to be listening on Blog Talk Radio, which I don't believe anybody is listening in the chat, or if they were listening, there are no mentions in the chat. Just took a peek at it. But anyway, so I get last week this guy, Doug Shake Snyder, who calls himself the conservative crawgator. He said that I was afraid to debate him, and I'm like, look, I'll debate you anytime. Or 2 weeks ago, he's like, I'll debate you anytime, anywhere. You want to talk about whatever? I don't even need to be prepared for anything. Just let's debate things off the cuff. And I issued the challenge, and Jeff was like, sure, we'll have you on for a segment, and y'all can talk back and forth with each other. And so I had two options. I have several options, one of which I didn't have time for. The first option was to cut this 15 minutes worth of clips into smaller clips and just play them and talk about them. The second option was to just upload this one clip, play it all on Blog Talk Radio, which doesn't have the ability to pause and restart, which I don't like. Or option 3, just play it from my computer, and when I play it from my computer, I can just pause it as need be to discuss the points that are being made in there, beyond whatever points I might have made in response to Doug's comments. So that's why I'm saying, if you're listening currently on Blog Talk Radio, you're going to hear some dead air, so switch on over to the YouTube channel. And what I might do is I might exchange the Blog Talk Radio audio with the audio from the YouTube once everything processes properly. So there you go. Anyway, so let's go ahead. We'll start playing this, and we'll pause it as necessary. Again, this is me on Jeff's show debating Doug Shake Snyder, i.e. the conservative craw gator.
All right, welcome back. A big thank you to our friends online at WGSO.com, those listening on the mobile devices with the...
First of all, thank you, Nick. I like the fact that I have fans. Thank you. I appreciate y'all so much for that. Anyway, let's continue.
Of course, Mixer app.
Gonna give me a copyright
and those listening on the dial at 990 AM, good to have all of you on board. To join the conversation, email me at jeff@wgso.com or give us a call at 504-556-9696, your ticket into the program.
And if you want to call Jeff in the morning, he's on between 7 and 11 Central Time. That's 504-556-9696. If you want to tell him how awesome I did on the debate, but I don't want to tell you to say that if you don't believe it, but if you do believe it, call in.
Every day in the program, we're very pleased to have with us a ringside all-star who joins us, and on Wednesdays, we're joined by expert commentator and blogger known by the handle The Conservative Crawgator. Our friend Doug Shake Snyder is with us. And Doug, how are you, sir? Welcome. Good morning.
Pretty good. I got the bass boat hooked up to the tight, and they go fishing right after the segment. And I'm kind of wondering, after this Georgia election, I wonder why the voters don't like $2 gas and 1.4% inflation, less crime, real borders. I just wonder what the voters want, because if you're voting for more of the Biden misery, you're going to get it. And I'm not so sure about spending being the absolute. Now, it's a big factor, but you have to have the message, and you have to have everybody rowing in the same direction, and you have to have a brief, blunt message. For instance, if I was in charge, I'd have a little black and white rectangle on the TV, an ad that says, a vote for Warnock is a vote for Biden. Is that what you really want? More misery? Just brief and to the point. I wouldn't really have a debate with these people. They have a record. They're supposed to defend their record, but they spend all their time with personal attacks on the opponent, not defending the policy.
Let's for this first segment, we're gonna bring on the other side and give him a chance to respond and engage with you. Our friend Liberal Dan is joining us. Hey, Liberal Dan, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Good morning, Doug. You know, one of the reasons that gasoline was, or the main reason why gasoline was so cheap during and towards the end of the Trump administration was that there was low demand because many people in the country were staying home and quarantining and being socially distanced and stuff like that. And when you have less demand, prices drop. So, I mean, it's I don't want to go back to that situation where we had a situation where we had to feel where people felt like they needed to stay home, you know, a bunch of the times. I like that there's more demand. Unfortunately, during the Trump administration, Donald Trump negotiated a deal with OPEC and Russia to artificially restrict oil output, which artificially restricted supply, which low supply means higher prices. And when we came out of the pandemic, there was no caveat in that agreement that would have said, okay, now we're going to increase production to match the increase in demand. And as such,
I got it.
We saw spiking prices.
All right, Doug, your response?
My response is we had low prices because Donald Trump let America drill. We had low prices because he wanted low prices for America. And when Biden came in, what did he do the first month? What did he do? He cut domestic production 38%. And as far as making overseas deals to buy less, this was because we were energy independent. So why should we buy the same amount of oil overseas when we're energy independent? That's all I got to say on that.
One thing I neglected to put in this part of the argument because I was limited on time again, but you know, the fact that we're not buying stuff from overseas because we're energy dependent. There's a global oil market, and so by globally making sure that we, you know, have less oil being produced, it affects global oil prices.
All right, real quick response, Liberal Dan, and then I'm going to get some other issues in. Go ahead.
We were a net gasoline exporter during the Obama administration. You can't ignore the decrease in demand for gasoline. You can't ignore that. You can't just wipe that. Economics doesn't just stop to exist because you like the president.
All right, other issues. We heard from Doug about his thoughts about the Georgia election. Liberal Dan, your thoughts?
I mean, on one side, you had somebody who was campaigning and in campaign speeches spoke about, you know, vampires and werewolves, and I might have understood the eventual point that he was trying to make, but it was just so odd that a lot of people were just turned off. I mean, here's the key with the Warnock victory. Reverend Warnock, Senator Warnock, ran campaign ads that literally just had Herschel Walker talking, and then Reverend Warnock saying, I'm Reverend Warnock, I approve this message. Like, he didn't have to make it. If you could run ads that basically advertise what your opponent is saying and then just say, hey, I approve this message, I mean, that shows you that you did not have a good candidate running in that position. I mean, I think if you would have had somebody on more lines like Kemp, they maybe could have taken it in the primary because Kemp did so well against Stacey Abrams.
So, all right, Doug, your thoughts?
I don't agree with that, but I do agree that was a good message strategy. Now, Herschel Walker should have had a similar message that said, this is what Warnock voted for, okay? Because it's what he voted for that counts. It's not slandering your opponent and all this bologna sausage. It's what did he vote for? He voted for your misery, and he's going to keep voting for more misery, more overspending, more borders, okay, more open borders. He should have hung all that on Warnock because Warnock was 94% voting for Biden. But for some reason, they cupcaked it, and they didn't do that. And there you go.
I mean, that means that he ran a bad campaign. But, I mean, one of the things that Doug, that you do a lot is that you make, like, general statements like, Warnock voted for misery. Like, what does that mean? What specifically did Warnock vote for that you feel is a detriment to the American people?
He voted 94% for Biden's policies. Where have you been for 2 years? The country is a mess. The open borders, millions of people coming over here. Drugs, fentanyl killed over 107,000 people. Disease, thugs, terrorists. And that's just one thing.
And one thing I also didn't get to throw into this point of the argument or the discussion, I don't think, was the fact that Biden has caught more drugs than Trump. Biden has stopped more drugs from entering the country than Trump. Now, Republicans will take this as, well, that means more drugs are crossing. No, it doesn't mean that in any way, shape, or form. It just means that Biden's reporting that he's doing it, he's having more success, which either meant Trump wasn't having as much success stopping drugs from crossing the border, or Trump didn't want to say how much drugs were crossing the border, because if Trump was actually stopping more, he had to sugarcoat it, because to him, if more drugs are crossing the border, that means somehow he's doing a bad job, because Trump likes to sugarcoat everything. He likes to downplay threats. So again, limited time, so I didn't get to throw this out with Doug, but that's just another point that I would have made had I would have had more time.
Biden has allowed that Warnock has not opposed just one thing besides the overspending and the whole, and just everything. He supports him 94%.
So you can't name a specific piece of legislation.
Well, I mean, how about all the major pieces of legislation that have been passed during the Biden administration? Everything from the infrastructure bill to the gun control legislation. I'm sure Warnock was on board with all the major pieces. I think they called it the American Rescue Plan. I mean, everything. I think there have been 4 major pieces of legislation, and I'm sure Warnock was on board with all that. And Dan, wouldn't you agree that at least some economists are saying that the spending is one of the big contributing factors to inflation, correct?
Well, I mean, spending is going to have it. If you spend more, it means you're demanding more, which means there's higher demand, which means there's higher prices. But that's part of it. But there's other parts of it that aren't being talked about, like the fact that we had supply shock, that we were coming out of this, pandemic with, not coming out of the pandemic, but coming out of the lockdowns with spiking demand, with a supply that could not keep pace, and that's going to automatically guarantee that you're going to have inflation. And it would have happened under Trump as well. It would have happened under Trump as well. That's the thing.
All right.
There's no way Trump could have avoided it.
Doug, your response?
Well, that's hypothetical. The thing is that Trump had everybody fighting him because of the next election coming up. Everybody wanted him to look ugly. The deep state, Fauci, who made $5 million during the pandemic, and stuff like this. And so everybody was working against Trump. Nobody was working against Biden. When he got in, deep state clicked on, everything went. 38% cut, pipelines stopped, all this other stuff. The borders were open.
I think I didn't get to the point of the pipeline stop, because the one thing I wanted to also point out, didn't have enough time, was the fact that the Keystone Pipeline was never going to affect domestic supply. The Keystone Pipeline was going to go down into Houston, I guess be refined, and then be shipped out of the port of Houston, taking advantage of some tax incentives or whatever that they had there. So no, it would not have helped domestic supply one iota.
That is a pretty picture. I don't care who you're debating. They can't defend open borders, period, for starters. And they can't debate the energy problem that Biden created. And of course, when gas goes,
Biden didn't create it. Trump created it.
Goes down, when demand goes down 7%, prices come down. That's true. But you don't cut it 38% up front and then say, and there'll be no more drilling.
504-556-9696, our talk line. I do want to hit some other issues in our remaining few minutes here. Liberal Dan, the military COVID vax mandate has been dropped from the defense bill, and
people are talking about the dirty oil sands and like the dirty oil and the dirty crude that comes in, and people were complaining that the dirty crude went to China. Well, that's because China is better equipped to refine that. Like, the American refineries don't want to refine dirty crude. That's something that the Chinese can handle better, so they're going to jump on that and they're going to refine that, and we're not going to, and that's not a problem.
The president, the defense secretary are continuing to support it. Yet Democrats and Republicans in the House Armed Services Committee have agreed to drop it from the annual defense bill. despite the opposition of the secretary and Joe Biden. Your thoughts?
I mean, 90% of the military did go ahead and take the vaccine. You might argue whether or not it's under duress or not, but everybody who's in the military has to take additional vaccines above and beyond the normal vaccines that you would have to, that a normal citizen might take anyway because of the exposure that they might have. I mean, people are free. I mean, I don't know if anybody got like dishonorably discharged because they refused the vaccine. I don't know if that happened. I would disagree with that. But if we're following the science and the science and the vast majority of the consensus of science says that by having large segments of vaccinated people that you're going to reduce the likelihood of negative effects, then I think it's reasonable to then have that vaccine mandate, especially for people especially if you're in the Navy, you're in close quarters on a ship. That's much more easy for viruses and et cetera to spread. Okay.
But the problem is this, and then I want to get Doug in. They're already having recruiting issues. They're kicking out thousands due to the vaccine. So I think a lot of the governors came forward and said, hey, you're hurting our ability to deal with emergencies and the needs for the national.
Now, Diane, don't go quoting facts to these conservatives that George Washington started mandates for military vaccines. They can't handle those facts.
Guard, because this is just adding to the woes that we have as far as manpower. So they pleaded with them to get rid of this vaccine mandate as well. So it's not only with the active duty, with the National Guard as well, Liberal Dan.
And if that's ultimately what they decided, and I would want the science to drive it, not recruitment to decide. I personally think on the military, I think if we spent more money like paying our troops to make sure that no troops had to be on government assistance, to make sure that troops were, well compensated for the work and make sure that they had quality health care after the fact, and less money on like paying back the industrial military complex because, we buy tanks and planes that the military itself says we don't want them, but the congressmen go, and these are both sides. Congressmen go, well, we have to pay these people back, so we're going to create a tarmac full of planes and a parking lot full of tanks that we're never going to use because we have to pay back our campaign contributors. Okay. So it's that corruption, I think, that, if we would have focused that money towards paying back the people who risked our lives for our safety, I think we would be in a better place, and we would have we would have less problems recruiting.
Let me get our friend Doug in on this. Doug, your thoughts?
Following the science, you end up in the money city and the political city. It never used to be that way. We had real flu vaccine.
I don't understand what that means. In the money city and the political city, I don't understand what the hell that means.
We never had a real COVID vaccine. Now we're in a different year. We've been through the worst of it, we're told. Of course, remember, we got millions of people pouring in with new diseases, unvetted. Remember that's a Democrat gift. And we know that we were lied to about ivermectin. We were lied to about a lot of things. We know how to treat it.
Ivermectin. To quote Hal Sparks, if you are sick with COVID and you take ivermectin and you feel better, that means that you also had worms.
Many different ways if we catch it early on. We're not at a war where they're out there shooting at other people. So this was the year to just throw this out. It's okay for the Democrat Party once in a while to give people choices.
Irony that a conservative wants to talk about giving people choices.
And finally, got a minute left. Liberal Dan, your thoughts on Elon Musk firing the Twitter lawyer who was involved with the FBI, James Bates?
Oh, I rolled my eyes plenty of times, Diane. That was, oof. It was, usually this caller is probably his second worst caller. And Thursdays is his worst one. It's Josh Bernstein or something. I don't know if you've heard of Josh Bernstein, but he's horrible too. I don't think you can find him on YouTube. I think he's been kicked off YouTube. I think he has his own website with a paywall. That's the only way you get to see his garbage. So Scott Bernstein is the worst one he has, but Doug is a very, very, very close second. And when both of them talk, I'm just like, oh, come on, really? I mean, even the one that he has on Tuesdays, Michelle, she's MAGA. She can at least have a conversation with you without being insulting. Like he does, he's always insulting. She can at least have a conversation with you without being insulting. And she'll at least be friendly with you, even if she's saying things that are just tacitly untrue. Factually untrue. So
Baker over his alleged role in censoring the Hunter Biden laptop story.
If he doesn't want him working for Twitter, since he's the owner of Twitter now, I mean, regardless of what he thinks, I mean, he's going to make the decisions on who to let go and who to fire, who to hire, and that's his right to do so as owner, and I don't think it matters what reason it is. So, I mean, he wants to run Twitter how he does. If it's going to be great, it'll be great. If it's going to go into the toilet, it's going to go in the toilet. It's none of my business as to who he hires or fires.
Do you like what you see so far? And we only have about 20 seconds to the break with what Elon Musk has done.
I've seen a lot more. I think the algorithms have changed. I think there's a lot more dissent right now going on Twitter. I'm seeing a lot more people who.
I meant to say vitriol there. I couldn't quite think of the word. I meant to say vitriol is the word I was thinking of.
I disagree with, and a lot more people disagreeing with me on my post simply because I think.
All right. I'm not going to continue with the rest of that because again, there's some music under there. I don't want to get a copyright hit on that. So basically, I was just saying that it's none of my business if he wants to hire and fire whoever he wants to fire, and we'll just see how it's going to turn out when it comes to if his company is going to be successful. I don't think it's going to be successful, but whatever, Wait, hold on.
It is what it is.
Thank you. And Benny Loveland, thank you again for saying great interview. And I mean, clearly I think I did better than Doug. And clearly the conservatives who called in think that Doug did better than me. So it'll be awesome. 504-556-9696 tomorrow morning between 7 and 11 Central Time if you wanted to jump on at WGSO.com and listen to Jeff's show and call in and say, hey, I listened to your Liberal Dan interview yesterday, and Liberal Dan killed it. That would just be great for just, overwhelming his people. Be like, I heard, you don't have to mention that, or you like me. You could just say, Dan did a great job. I don't know what that Doug guy was talking about. Anyway, so we're talking about jabs. I am now team, was it Novazur or Fivavax maybe? Because I started off doing the Novavax study. I got the first 2 shots in the study, and then I got their booster. And then they said that they were not going to do any more boosters. So because they weren't going to do any more boosters, I then went ahead and got Pfizer. And I got the Pfizer like a month or 2 ago. So I've been jabbed 4 times, one of which being Pfizer, 3 of which being Novavax. So, and I did get COVID once after getting vaccinated. I did get sick once that I could have sworn it was COVID, but I tested negative for it, even though my youngest son had it. The doctor says you probably had a mild strain of it, and the test probably just didn't pick it up. But that time, my youngest was bouncing off the walls. He had no effects from the COVID. Meanwhile, me and my wife are sitting there like, feeling like crap and testing negative. So, that's how it goes, I guess. And of course, there was the other time that in January of 2020 where I'm fairly certain I also had COVID because I felt like death. But when I went to the urgent care, to finally deal with it, and the urgent care was like, well, you have a virus, but it's not the flu. So what could that have been, huh? Probably COVID. So I did go ahead and get the flu shot this year as well. I get the flu shot every year, though, so that's nothing new for me. So anyway, programming notes before we end the show, because we're going to end the show soon, because, again, I still have to go take care of the pup. Have to take care of this little kitten on my shoulder. I have a little kitty dragon. Tomorrow night at 11 p.m. Central, I guess 12 midnight, 11 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. West Coast, I'm going to have a special edition of Liberal Dan Radio here on YouTube and on Blog Talk Radio. I will be having an interview with Philip Bittner, direct from Ukraine. So if you've heard him on Hal's show, he will be on my show tomorrow as well. So tune in for that. Make sure to let your friends know that we're having a special late night edition. And if you, for some reason, you can't listen to it live, it will always be here for you to watch. I'm probably going to keep it around an hour, maybe make it a somewhat smaller show. But if it happens to go long, it happens to go long. No biggie. So I'm not going to cut him off if he doesn't. If he has lots of stuff to talk about, he can just talk away, and that's fine. Tomorrow I also will be doing my live stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/nerdydan.com. I've moved that back to the 8 p.m. time. So instead of 10 p.m. now, my Twitch streams are back on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8 p.m. And then hopefully sometime this weekend I'm going to have the opportunity to make at least one of the videos I want to talk about discussing the Electoral College and a reason why we should get rid of it and how Donald Trump could abuse it potentially to win the presidency without having to do as much, and he could take the lazy way out. So anyway, so that's the upcoming programming notes for myself, for Nerdy Dan, for Liberal Dan. If I do plan to go online and do some extra streaming either here or on Twitch, I will let y'all know about that. I will post it to Twitter, post it to Facebook, I'll post it to lots of different places. Do want to give shouts out to the Liberal Dan Radio patrons. Again, Deminox, the first Liberal Dan Radio patron, shout out to you. Cesar, Chris, the Mod Squad, Aaron and Jolie, Wes. I don't know, I haven't seen Wes tonight. I hope he's okay. Robert Reynolds, all supporting the show at the OG levels, either Minicast listener or regular listener. I do have to go make a Minicast at some point soon. And of course, Julie Swenson for being the first Liberal Dan Radio producer. The OGs are, again, I'm going to no longer have the OGs available after whatchamacallit, after December 31st. Starting the new year, no more of that. So, you snooze, you lose, I suppose. Anyway, so there's that. And again, if you want to support the show other ways, you can buy me a cider, liberaldan.com, click the buy me a cider button, go to buymeacoffee.com/liberaldanradio. You can Venmo me using the QR code, or it's just at liberaldan as well. That way you can follow me on Liberal Dan Radio on Twitter, Liberal Dan on Facebook as well. Make sure, if you haven't subbed here, make sure to subscribe here as well. So until tomorrow night, 8 p.m. on Twitch with nerdydan.com and 11 p.m. Central here on YouTube with our special episode with Philip Bittner. I'll be back. Again, make sure to do all the subscribing and following that you can do to help push the show out, share some videos, everything, and I will appreciate it muchly. Again, so tomorrow, this is Dan from Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left. That's right. Say goodbye, Sophia.
90 seconds. Seconds. Seconds.